Hi guys, my name is SarahHartman, and I'm doing a presentation on military veteran students in higher education. I'm going to briefly go over transitioning to college from the military, women veterans returning to college, GI Bill, educational funding, what veterans and college campuses can offer for each other, what type of services we can offer to students as student affairs professionals. And then we're also going to go over how to become a veteran-friendly campus. So I look forward to showing you guys all about veteran students. So as I started doing research for this topic on military veterans returning to college, I spoke with a couple students. Sadie's information really stood out to me. So the information that you will read on this slide is loosely based off of her situation and how she felt when she was first coming to campus. So please read this little blurb of information and really think about that as we move forward through the presentation. So I wanted to start off by going over some statistics about military veterans returning to college. So as you can see there, in 2007 to 2008, 4% of all undergraduate students were veterans or active military personnel, proving that there is a significant number of veteran students on our college campuses. More than 2.4 million men and women have served in the armed forces since 2001. So this kind of leads me into the next point there, that all these men and women are eligible for GI Bill benefits. So that's why we're going to see that influx of veterans returning to college, because now these 2.4 million people have the opportunity to use those GI benefits. So we'll go more into that later on in the presentation. 47% of undergraduate veterans are married and 47% have children. So that's kind of a big number. Shows us that as student affairs administrators, we need to be willing to offer services to those veterans to help out with that. So these are no longer considered what we call traditional students. They're going to be more of adult students returning to education. And then in 2012, over 1 million veterans took advantage of their educational benefits. So that totaled over $10.5 billion in benefits used. Now that was in 2012, so as we see that number rise, we will need to continue to provide more veteran-friendly campuses and veteran-friendly services on our campus, which I will introduce more information about later on in the presentation. So transitioning to college from the military has become a huge topic. Veterans have a debriefing at the end of their deployment, but many choose not to attend that debriefing because they are told by their peers that it might delay their departure coming home. Therefore, they're coming back with no knowledge of how to use their GI Bill, what benefits they're offered, how to even come back and transition to civilian life, transition into higher education, and things like that. So it's important as student affairs professionals that we are aware that some of these students have no idea what their next steps are. And so we need to try to assist them the best we can without just assuming that as a veteran they know what they're eligible for. Many student veterans typically attend a traditional orientation when they are at their college or university of choice. However, many student veterans feel that there should be a separate orientation strictly for veterans, because quite often you get veterans who need to know specific questions about the GI Bill. How many online versus how many on-campus classes can they take? What are they eligible for with the GI Bill? Different information like that. So these veterans really feel like they should have a separate type of orientation. And this is something that we, as student affairs professionals, would need to look more into in the future. Many veterans do attend school while they are stateside, but once they receive their deployment orders, they must quit school. This can lead to quite a few different things, such as having to retake courses that they've already taken or have already started because they had to take incompletes or they just had to withdraw from the course. Oftentimes they're having to reapply to programs. I talked to a student who had to reapply to an engineering program, one that had to reapply to a nursing program, and there's no guarantee that they will get back into those programs. And although they will not lose their GI funding, some students, if they have outside scholarship opportunities, could possibly lose their funding by having to leave school and go up for deployment. So that is something that as student affairs professionals, we need to be aware of the policies and procedures we have in place for veteran students, and also how we can update those so that we are giving our student veterans the best possibility to be able to deploy and then come back and complete school. This will also help with our completion and retention rates down the road. And lastly, many times deactivations do not line up with school semesters, so frequently veterans must wait to re-enroll in school. This would be a good opportunity for institutions to offer some staggered start times for classes, such as a full semester course and then maybe midterm courses, or late start 13-week courses, just something that we have in place. So if you have veterans or other students, they don't necessarily have to be veterans, but particularly veterans who are coming back to the institution, so they are able to get started quickly and not have to wait as long as other students. So I wanted to touch on women veterans returning to college, as we are finding this to be quite a big topic in higher education. As you can see there, in 2005, 14% of active duty service members were women, which is an increase of 11.5% since 1973. And furthermore, 11% of the U.S. troops in Iraq or Afghanistan were women. So this is significant because as we see more military veterans coming back to college, we will see that we will definitely have an increase in women veterans who are going to be coming back to college. In 2008, 26.9% of the undergraduate student veteran population were female. So I think that's quite a significant number that we are seeing of female veterans. So it's kind of important to take a look at how female military veterans differ from male military veterans and how we can assist them on campus. Many women veterans returning to civilian life have mental health, sexual assault, and gender identity issues. This happens because approximately 23% of women are sexually assaulted while serving, and when they return to civilian life, they often feel anxious, depressed, lonely, and left out. So it's very important that we have services available to these students, such as disability services, counseling and therapy services, and sexual assault information. According to Bachtold and DeSwall, during their time in the military, women suppressed their femininity or engaged in more typical male behaviors, such as swearing and drinking alcohol. The drinking alcohol is kind of a huge factor. We'd want to make sure that we're letting these veterans know about the problems of increased alcohol consumption and how to receive assistance with that. Now, with the women veterans returning to civilian life, many of them may need to focus on exploring their gender identity and they may need resources such as counseling and group therapy to assist them with that. Another problem that we're seeing is it's often difficult to find female faculty and staff members who are military veterans, and this makes it challenging for these women military veterans to identify role models. So as we move forward as student affairs professionals, it's going to be interesting to see what type of military female role models we can bring into higher education so that we are offering women veteran students the best opportunity and the best sources and role models possible. So definitely something to take a look at for the future. So I'm not sure about you guys, but I often hear about the GI Bill and educational funding for military veterans, but I really did not have any idea of what it meant or how in-depth it went. And I often thought, why does this affect me? I just work with the admissions side. I don't have to work as a veterans coordinator. But it's interesting how many students are questioning whether or not they should even attend school because they need to know about their GI Bill and educational benefits first. So I think it's important as student affairs professionals that we at least have an understanding of this information so that if we do get questions from students, we can successfully answer them. So to kind of break down what that GI Bill is, the GI Bill provides financial assistance for post-secondary education to military service members and veterans with at least 90 days of active duty service after September 10th of 2001. Some other things that I found very interesting was that the GI Bill covers not only tuition for veterans, but also books and living expenses. However, there are quite a few hoops that students should have to jump through in order to receive these benefits. And these benefits are time sensitive, so veterans should inquire about taking advantage of them as soon as possible so they can receive the most amount of funding and so they don't lose out on important benefits. Something else that's pretty interesting is that children and spouses of veterans are also eligible for these benefits. So as student affairs professionals, we need to be aware of when a student comes in and says, well, my mother was in the military, I should also be eligible for these benefits because they didn't use them. We need to be aware that that is a thing, and we can point them in the right direction of veterans coordinator or financial aid so that students can get more information about this. So now I'm going to discuss what veterans and college campuses can offer for each other. Many student affairs administrators know their campus or know what their campus can offer to students. However, it's also critical to be aware of what the students, specifically veterans, can offer to their campus. So veterans can bring many qualities with them to campus, such as drive, passion, focus, commitment, which are all needed to succeed in college. These qualities, accompanied with their level of maturity, often result in an increase of mature behavior in the classrooms. So as student affairs faculty have to kind of find that balance between the more traditional student who is younger, maybe doesn't have that maturity like a veteran student does. So it can become kind of a conflict in the classroom when you have veteran students who are very mature, strict, passionate, focused, by the book, and then you have that non-traditional student who may not have that same focus. So it can cause some friction in the classroom. Many veterans bring with them real-life experiences that cannot be taught in the classroom. They can offer experience into insight on what the military life is, and what military is really like. Many students and even faculty members kind of form opinions about the military from what they see in movies, and they come up with their own type of stereotype about the military. But having veteran students in class, they can really kind of break down those stereotypes and provide some real experience for both the students in the classroom and the faculty. So they can really enhance discussions on different topics quite a bit. Also, they can bring more information and more discussions on life and death situations or cultural experiences in other countries, because they have that firsthand experience, and they can provide a personal insight during class time. So we might see more veterans talking more in class about their life and death experiences, what it was like in different cultures such as Iraq and Afghanistan, and what other people should expect. So what can college campuses provide for veterans? I'm going to go over in the next few slides some of the services, some of the offices that you would typically think about when you're thinking of services to provide for any type of student, but specifically veterans. But I just kind of wanted to go over some of those things that we may not think about. One of the main things that college campuses can provide is a safe and non-judgmental environment for veterans to learn. They don't have to worry about people wondering, what they're doing. They don't have to look behind their back. They can constantly just focus on their education and have that commitment towards learning. They can offer, or college campuses can offer classes to students that they can use to improve their skills for civilian life. So as we mentioned earlier, 47% of undergraduate students who are military veterans are married or have children. So offering classes such as consumer economics, things like that, to really help them gain the skills to become better consumers is going to be extremely important for military veterans. It's also good to offer a place for veterans to have social interaction with civilians, kind of improving their civilian skills and teaching them how to act properly in society. Many of these veterans have spent numerous years in the military. They have a very strict, rigid military lifestyle, and coming back into the civilian life can be a very hard transition. They have a different level of maturity, a different level of understanding. So being around other students will really help them to make that transition to civilian life. And lastly, the most important thing that colleges can offer to veterans is an education and a way to thrive out in the civilian world. Giving veterans the right environment, providing them with the supports that they need, and offering them an education will help veterans transition into civilian life more smoothly, and definitely help them to provide for their families and for our communities. Okay, so I wanted to discuss services on campus for veterans, and I kind of wanted to go over some terms that you may hear when we talk about veterans. One of those terms being PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, and the other one being TBI, traumatic brain injury. So going back to the PTSD, approximately 25% of returning veterans have a mental health diagnosis, including PTSD. This is definitely on the rise compared to what previous generations were being diagnosed with PTSD. So it's very important that we are aware of what PTSD is, what are the signs of PTSD, and what we can do for these veterans. One study did find that women veterans were twice as likely as men to suffer from PTSD as a result of their military service. This is huge because, as we said earlier, quite a few women were returning back to college, and so we need to be able to provide these women with the services to assist them with their PTSD. So with post-traumatic stress disorder, what it does is it can cause flashbacks to times when veterans were in war or had to deal with a traumatic situation such as death. Some of the reactions, the stress reactions that come along with PTSD include depression, anxiety, anger, guilt, and trouble concentrating. Quite often we'll see these veteran students who like to sit in the back of the classroom because they want to be able to keep a clear eye on everyone else in the classroom. This is quite common with students who suffer from PTSD. They do not like having students or other people sitting behind them or standing behind them. And they may be more likely to have depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. So another term we hear, like I mentioned, is traumatic brain injuries. This is just like it sounds. It's a very traumatic injury to the brain, which can often result in lower academic success. And that would include memory problems, trouble concentrating, and even things such as physical limitations, such as walking, talking, eating, things of that nature. So for students who have these TBIs or PTSD, it's very important that we get them in touch with disability services. Disability services can offer them numerous accommodations and allow them to successfully complete their education on campus. Along with that, we have seen an increase in service dogs, so it's important that we allow our institutions knowledge on service dogs and what to expect, such as not petting the service dogs, not talking to the service dogs, knowing that they are a work animal, and making sure that everyone is just aware so that we can have these veterans feel comfortable and safe on our campus. So definitely providing that information to students and to faculty and staff is important. And then lastly, they're focusing on counseling and therapy services. These veterans need all the assistance they can get. So having having counselors or therapy staff that are focused in PTSD, TBIs, they have suicidal prevention teams on campus. All of that's going to be very important to our military veteran students, and making sure that they are knowledgeable of those programs and how to get in touch with anybody if they feel like they need to talk to somebody. So it's important for our veteran students to have services on campus, such as disability services and counseling, to succeed socially and academically. Veterans with PTSD or TBIs can use disability services for accommodations such as special seating, assistance taking notes, extended time on test, and tutoring, just to name a few. And then counseling services, like I mentioned, should be available for veterans to talk about their transition into civilian life, feelings of anxiety or depression, and offer someone to listen to their questions and concerns. These resources on campus could possibly improve veterans' social functioning and their academic achievements. So we mentioned earlier all these different things that we can do and provide resources for veterans on our campus. But one of the big things we can do is just become a veteran-friendly campus. In California, they're doing quite a bit of research on this, but right now there are two big things that we can focus on adding and looking more into. I think we'll see more institutions in the future go towards a veteran-friendly campus, but I just wanted to make you aware of different things that would help to make your institution veteran-friendly. So first there, I want to focus on setting up a designated veteran area. This can be a classroom, an area that is just quiet with little distraction. It's set up strictly for veteran students only. Having counseling, information on counseling and therapy services, or even having a counselor or therapist available during certain hours for veterans to come in and talk or do such things such as group therapy would also be important. And having pamphlets for the veterans on things such as food pantries, housing, and employment opportunities is going to be huge, as we found that these are the three things that veterans are struggling with the most. And mainly, this just needs to be a designated veteran area that gives veterans a place to relax and socialize with their peers. Another thing that we can do that has become popular in California that I would like to see on more campuses would be offering a one-stop shop for veterans to get the medical and mental health services that they need. According to McAlliston there, attending additional weekly therapy appointments at a location off campus can be particularly difficult for student veterans with full-time school and work schedules. If these services instead were offered on campus, students would be able to make their appointments and still be on time for class or work, therefore increasing their success of academic achievements. So this is huge. If they have direct access to this treatment, they will be more likely to attend school, and this may help them not only mentally but physically as well, and giving them a better chance at achieving their academic goals, leading to more employment opportunities and higher wages. So it would be coming full circle, really, for these veteran students. Making these changes on college campuses across the U.S. could lead to better outcomes for our veteran students. So I found some data regarding military veterans that I found pretty astonishing. First off, approximately 40% of veterans will not graduate from college, and this is putting them at a much greater risk for things such as unemployment. So only 1 in 4 institutions reported having a detailed understanding of the root cause of stop out or drop out among undergraduate students who are active duty military and student veterans, which I found to be pretty interesting. So it's definitely something as student affairs administrators we need to take more of an interest in. We need to find out what we are not doing that is causing these student veterans to not complete their education. Not only is this going to make a difference for us for our retention and completion numbers, but this is going to help our economy, help us in our communities by giving these military veterans the opportunity to improve themselves by completing their education. So that chart that you see on the right there just goes over some information. It gives you kind of the percent of institutions that are tracking the retention and degree completion rates of our active duty military and student veterans. So what you can see here is kind of, 1% is focusing on the retention only. 6% is going over degree completion only. 26% are focusing on retention and degree completion, but 67% are not focusing on any of that. So again, I just need to reiterate that as student affairs professionals, as we continue into the workforce, we really need to take an interest and take more focus on what we can do to get better retention and completion rates for our student military veterans. So this slide here kind of sums it all up on what I think are the important aspects that student affairs administrators should keep in mind when thinking about working with student military veterans. It's important to know how to work with those student veterans. All of the information that I gave you earlier, allows you to better understand military veterans, where they're coming from, how we should approach them, and things of that nature. But we need to remember to work with them not only as veterans, but also get to know them personally. If they need assistance with the food pantry, if they need assistance with how to pay for housing, we need to be able to provide that information and not just look at them as a military veteran. Again, I just want to reiterate that reminding student affairs professionals that veterans have therapy appointments that they must attend, as well as courses that they need to complete, which we all know. So working to make these accommodations are integral to student success. I know I've said that earlier, but it's just really important that we assist students and we don't penalize them for attending appointments that they need to attend. Again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but having policies and procedures in place for student veterans who are still active duty and are called to service so that there will not be more stress surrounding an already stressful situation. So they know when they leave and they come back, they will be able to pick up right where they left off. And that's going to be something that will really draw more of our military veterans into higher education. It's vital for veterans to receive the attention that they need to successfully graduate from college and enter the workforce. And so I leave you with this quote from a student veteran enrolled at a community college. The school that I actually went to knew nothing about the military and their concerns. They didn't have a certifying official or anything like that. To have somebody there to help you with your veterans benefits is huge. So keep that in mind and really try to do whatever we can to assist our military veterans. As we move forward, please do not forget about our military veterans and their special needs. They do so much for our country, and the least we can do is provide them with the necessary resources to complete an education and succeed in civilian life. If you want more information about any of the topics that I discussed, please feel free to look at the next few slides of references and take a more in-depth look of the military students, veterans, and what they have to deal with. Thank you.